The evening sky over the city was painted with shades of orange and gold as the sun began to set behind the tall buildings. Inside a small, quiet apartment on the edge of town, Mira sat beside her baby trying to calm him down. The child was crying softly, his little hands waving in the air. Mira rocked him gently, whispering to him to stay calm. Her eyes were tired, and her clothes were plain but neat. She was only 21, yet life had already shown her many challenges. Her mother, Mina, worked as a maid for a rich family in the heart of the city. Every morning she left before sunrise, wearing her old blue sari and carrying her lunch in a small tin box. Mira admired her mother's strength. Mina had raised her alone after Mira's father had disappeared from their lives years ago. Now Mira found herself in the same situation, raising her own child without anyone to lean on. Money was always short. Mira tried to earn by stitching clothes for neighbors, but the pay was never enough. That week had been especially hard. Prices had gone up and the small savings she had were gone. When she opened the cupboard that evening, she saw the baby's formula container was empty. Her heart sank. She tried to feed her baby warm water to soothe him, but it only made him cry more. Mira sat down and pressed her forehead against her hands. She did not like to ask for help, but she knew her baby needed milk. Her mother was still at work and would not be home until late night. Mira remembered that her mother's employer sometimes helped her with small advances. Maybe, she thought, she could ask him politely for some help until her mother's salary came. She picked up her phone, hesitated for a moment, then started typing. Her fingers shook slightly as she wrote, trying to sound respectful and sincere. She wrote, "Sir, I am sorry to disturb you. I am Mina's daughter, Mira. My baby has no milk left and I don't have money to buy formula today. If you could please help me a little, I will return it when my mother gets her pay. Thank you." Mira looked at the message several times before pressing send. She felt nervous but also relieved that she had tried something instead of sitting helplessly. The message was sent and she placed the phone on the bed. Her baby had finally fallen asleep, tired from crying. The room was dimly lit by a single bulb that flickered now and then. Mira sat quietly, thinking about how life could change with one mistake or one act of kindness. She thought about her mother working hard in big houses, cleaning shiny floors and washing dishes while people around her lived lives full of comfort. A few minutes later, Mira's phone buzzed. Her heart skipped a beat. She quickly picked it up, thinking it was her mother's employer replying. The message on the screen was short. "I think you sent this message to the wrong number. Are you okay?" Mira stared at it, confused. She checked the number she had sent the message to and realized one digit was wrong. She had accidentally messaged a complete stranger. Her face turned red with embarrassment. She quickly typed back, "I am so sorry. It was a mistake. Please ignore my message." She felt foolish. She wished she could take it back. But before she could put the phone down again, another message appeared. "It's all right. You sound like you're in trouble. Do you need help?" Mira frowned. Why would a stranger care? She did not want to involve anyone she didn't know. She typed again, "No, thank you. I made a mistake. I am fine." The stranger did not reply after that, and she felt relieved. She placed her phone aside and went to check on her baby. He was sleeping peacefully now. Mira sat beside him and closed her eyes for a few minutes, feeling exhausted. Meanwhile, in a tall glass building across the city, Ryan, a young billionaire businessman, sat in his office. He had been reviewing a new project proposal when the unusual message had appeared on his phone. Normally, he ignored random messages, but something about this one made him pause. It had no tricks or dramatic words. It was written with quiet honesty. He could almost feel the worry in the way the words were arranged. Ryan had built his fortune from nothing. He knew what it meant to be desperate for help. The memory of his childhood in a small rented room with his mother came back to him. She had struggled to feed him when he was a boy, and he remembered nights when they had gone to bed hungry. That was why the message stayed in his mind. He leaned back in his chair, reading the text again. He did not know who Mira was, but something told him that behind that small mistake was a real story. He replied again, "Are you sure you are fine? You can tell me if you need help." But there was no reply. Mira had already put her phone on silent mode and fallen asleep next to her baby. Hours passed and the city went quiet. Mina returned home from work late that night. She found Mira asleep with her child, and noticed the empty formula container on the table. Mina sighed softly, her heart aching for her daughter. She had only a few coins left from her travel money, not enough to buy milk. But she decided she would wake early and try to borrow some from a neighbor. The next morning, Mira woke up to find a new message on her phone. It was from the same number. It said, "Good morning. I hope you and your baby are okay. Please don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it." Mira read the message and felt a strange warmth in her heart. She did not know this person, but there was kindness in the words. Still, she did not reply. She believed that accepting help from a stranger was not safe. She got ready, helped her mother prepare for work, and stayed home with her baby, trying to manage the day as best as she could. On the other side of town, Ryan could not stop thinking about the message. He had all the money one could wish for, yet he felt that most of his days were empty. His life was filled with meetings, numbers, and faces that wanted something from him. The short message from a stranger had reminded him that real people still existed behind all the noise. He decided to ask his assistant to look into it discreetly, to find out if someone named Mina worked for any of their clients. As the day went by, Mira had no idea that her mistaken text had reached someone powerful, someone who might soon step into her quiet, struggling world. For now, she only knew that she had tried her best to care for her baby, and that somehow, even in her darkest moment, a small light of kindness had appeared in the form of a wrong number. The next morning came with soft light streaming through the thin curtains of Mira's small room. The baby woke early, his tiny hands reaching out for her. Mira smiled weakly and lifted him into her arms. She hummed a small tune that her mother used to sing to her. The child's laugh filled the quiet room for a moment, and for that brief time the worries of life faded away. Mina had already left for work before sunrise, as always. She never complained, though her back ached and her hands were rough from cleaning. Mira admired her mother deeply. She wanted to give her something better one day. But right now, her biggest wish was simply to feed her baby properly. Mira boiled water and poured it into a small steel cup. She added the last bit of rice water from last night and fed it to her baby slowly. It was not enough, but it was all she could manage until her mother came home with her pay. She looked at her phone and saw the same unknown number again. There was no new message, but she could not forget the kind tone of the man's words from the night before. She sat quietly, thinking about how strange life could be. Sometimes help came from where you least expected, and sometimes the people who should have helped turned away. Still, she decided not to reply. She told herself that she must handle things on her own. Far across the city, inside a bright glass building, Ryan was sitting in his office with a cup of coffee. He was a man everyone respected. His company had grown into one of the largest in the city, and his name often appeared in magazines and newspapers. Yet as he scrolled through his messages that morning, his eyes kept stopping at the same one. The one that began with the words, "Sir, I am Mina's daughter, Mira." He read it again and again. There was something about the message that felt honest, almost too real for his world of formal emails and business deals. He wondered what kind of person had written it. He remembered her apology after realizing the mistake. Most people who wanted money from him used clever words or fake stories. But this one had not asked again, even after he offered to help. That made him curious. Ryan's assistant, Ravi, walked into the office carrying some documents. Ryan looked up and asked casually, "Ravi, do we know anyone named Mina who works for one of our partner families?" Ravi blinked, surprised. "Mina, sir. I can check." "Is there a reason?" Ryan nodded slightly. "Just something I need to confirm. She might be working as household help for one of the families we know. Please find out quietly." Ravi was used to Ryan's unusual requests. He did not ask questions and left the office to make a few calls. Hours passed. Ryan attended his usual meetings, signed papers, and greeted investors, but his mind kept returning to the message. He wondered if Mira had enough to eat, if her baby was healthy, and if she had anyone to support her. By late afternoon, Ravi returned with the information. "Sir, I found someone named Mina. She works for Mr. Kapoor, one of the families who supply materials for our construction projects. She has been with them for years. They say she is very hardworking." Ryan nodded slowly. "Does she live nearby?" "Yes, sir. A small apartment near the old market area." Ryan thanked him and leaned back in his chair. For the first time in a long while, he felt something that had nothing to do with money or success. He felt concern. He remembered his own mother who had cleaned houses when he was a child. She used to say that kindness was the only wealth that never ran out. That evening, Ryan decided to visit quietly. He did not want attention or cameras. He put on simple clothes, left his car a few streets away, and walked toward the narrow lane where Mina lived. The buildings were old, the walls were faded, and children played in the dust-covered road. The smell of cooked rice and fried onions filled the air. When he reached the building, he asked a shopkeeper nearby if Mina lived there. The shopkeeper nodded and pointed toward a small staircase. Ryan climbed up carefully and stopped in front of a wooden door that looked worn but clean. He could hear a baby laughing faintly inside. He knocked gently. Mira opened the door holding her baby in one arm. She looked surprised to see a stranger standing there. Ryan smiled politely and said, "Hello, is this Mina's house?" "Yes," Mira replied, a little nervous. "My mother is not home yet. She is still at work." Ryan nodded. "You must be Mira." Mira froze for a moment. "How do you know my name?" Ryan's smile softened. "You sent me a message yesterday by mistake. I hope you don't mind that I came to check if you're all right." Mira's eyes widened. She remembered the message instantly. Her heart started to beat faster. She looked down at her baby and then back at him. "I'm really sorry about that. I didn't mean to bother you. It was an accident." "I know," Ryan said gently. "But sometimes accidents lead to the right place." Mira didn't know what to say. No one had ever come to check on her like this, especially not someone who looked like him. She could tell from his neat clothes and calm manner that he was not an ordinary man. Ryan noticed how small the room was. There was a single bed, a small table, and a few folded clothes on a chair. But everything was clean and neatly arranged. He could see that Mira tried her best to keep her home in order. He said quietly, "You mentioned baby formula in your message. Do you have enough now?" Mira hesitated, feeling embarrassed. "No, not really. But my mother will get her salary tonight." "I'll buy it then." Ryan nodded. He looked around again and said, "Would it be all right if I helped you just this once?" "You don't have to return anything." Mira shook her head quickly. "No, sir. I can't accept that. You're a stranger. I don't want to take money from someone I don't know." Ryan respected her honesty. He smiled again and said, "I understand." "Then let me help in another way. I can send some food and milk for your baby, not as charity, but as a thank you for reminding me what kindness looks like." Mira was quiet for a moment. The baby began to fuss, and she patted him gently. She could see that the man in front of her meant no harm. His eyes were kind and his words were calm. She finally nodded slightly. "Thank you," she said softly. Ryan left soon after, promising to send some things later that evening. When he returned to his office, he told Ravi to arrange a few supplies, baby formula, food items, and some groceries. He didn't want anyone to know who they were from. That night, when a delivery boy brought the bags to her door, Mira stood in surprise. She took them with trembling hands. Inside were tins of formula, rice, vegetables, and even a soft blanket for the baby. A small note was attached. It said, "Take care of your baby. The world still has good people. From a stranger who cares." Mira read the note several times, tears filling her eyes. She sat down beside her baby, holding his small hand. For the first time in a long while, she felt hope rising inside her. Somewhere in the city, Ryan looked out of his office window at the glowing skyline. He smiled faintly, thinking of the young woman and her child. He did not know why, but helping her had brought him a peace that all his wealth never could. And without knowing it, a quiet bond had formed between two very different worlds, one built on riches and the other built on struggle. A week had passed since the day Mira received the unexpected groceries. Life inside the small apartment had become a little easier. The baby was healthier now, smiling more often and sleeping peacefully. Mira had bought a small basket to keep the new formula tins neatly arranged. Every time she looked at them, she felt thankful but also curious. She wondered who the kind stranger really was. Her mother, Mina, had been surprised to see all the items. When Mira told her the story about the wrong message and the man who had come by, Mina had been both shocked and worried. She warned her daughter to be careful, saying that not everyone who appeared kind could be trusted. Mira understood her mother's concern, but something in her heart told her that the man had meant no harm. He had not asked for anything in return. He had not even left his name. One sunny morning, Mina left early for work as usual. She worked in the Kapoor family's large house. which had marble floors, chandeliers, and tall glass windows. She swept, dusted, and cleaned every corner of the place. Though her job was tiring, she never complained. That morning, however, her heart felt lighter knowing her daughter and grandchild had enough to eat. At his company, Ryan was having another busy day. He was surrounded by reports, calls, and meetings, yet his mind wandered now and then. He found himself thinking about the small apartment, the tired but brave young woman, and the innocent child. He had told Ravi, his assistant, to check quietly if the family needed anything else, but he did not want to appear as if he was intruding. That afternoon, while Ryan was reviewing some files, Ravi entered the office with a hesitant smile. "Sir, you might find this interesting," he said, handing over a folder. "It's about Meena, the maid we discussed earlier. She's been working for the Kapoor family for 10 years. Everyone says she is honest and kind. They also said her daughter, Meera, sometimes helps her on weekends. She can stitch clothes and even reads and writes very well." Ryan looked up, slightly surprised. "She can read and write well?" "Yes, sir. She finished school but could not study further because of her family's condition." Ryan closed the file slowly. A thought crossed his mind. He had a community program through his company that helped train young people from low-income families for office jobs. He wondered if Meera might be interested. She was clearly responsible and hard-working, and she deserved a better chance in life. That evening, Ryan decided to visit again. This time he brought a small toy for the baby and some fruit for Meena. He did not want to appear grand or distant, so he dressed simply and went alone. When Meera opened the door and saw him, her eyes widened in surprise. "You came again," she said softly. Ryan smiled politely. "Yes, I hope I am not disturbing you. I just came to see how you and your mother are doing." Meera hesitated, then stepped aside. "Please come in." The small room looked neater than before. A soft breeze entered through the window. The baby was lying on the bed playing with a piece of cloth. Ryan placed the toy beside him, and the baby immediately reached for it with bright eyes. Meera could not help but smile. "You didn't have to bring anything," she said. "I wanted to," Ryan replied kindly. "Your baby reminds me that there are simple joys in life we often forget." Meera looked at him closely. She could tell he was not an ordinary man. His words, his calmness, even the way he looked around with quiet respect, it all showed that he came from a very different world. Yet he didn't behave proudly. He spoke to her as if they were equals. They sat down at the small table. Meera offered him some water. Ryan asked about her mother, her work, and her life. Meera answered politely, telling him how her mother worked long hours and how she tried to help by stitching clothes at home. Ryan listened carefully. "Have you ever thought about working outside the home?" he asked. Meera shook her head. "I can't. My baby is too small and there is no one to watch him. Maybe when he grows a little." Ryan nodded thoughtfully. "I understand. But when the time comes, would you like a job? Not as a maid, but something that matches your skills. Maybe office work or training?" Meera looked at him, unsure if she had heard him right. "Office work? I don't think I'm good enough for that." Ryan smiled. "Everyone starts somewhere. You just need someone to believe in you." Meera felt something stir inside her. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Most people looked at her with pity or ignored her completely. But this man saw something in her that even she had forgotten existed. They spoke for a little while longer before Ryan stood up to leave. "Tell your mother I came by," he said. "I'll visit again soon. And think about what I said. Opportunities are like seeds. If you plant them at the right time, they grow." When he left, Meera stood at the door for a long time, watching him walk down the lane. She could not understand why someone so rich and busy would take interest in helping her. But she felt a small spark of hope she hadn't felt in years. Later that night, when Meena returned home, Meera told her everything. Meena was shocked at first, but when she saw the toy and the fruit, her eyes softened. "He sounds kind," she said slowly. "But we must still be careful. Not everyone helps without reason." "I know," Meera said, "but I think he is different." Over the next few weeks, Ryan kept his word. He helped Meera enroll in a part-time computer course through his company's training program. He did not tell her it was his personal arrangement. She thought it was just another opportunity from a local charity group. Ryan made sure she received a small monthly allowance during her training so she could still care for her baby. Each time she attended the class, she felt nervous but excited. She learned how to type, how to send emails, and how to make simple reports. Her classmates were kind, and the instructor often praised her for her quick learning. Ryan visited now and then, but he never made her feel uncomfortable. He always spoke with respect, asking about her baby and her studies. Mira began to see him as someone who had appeared in her life for a reason. One evening, as she walked home after class, she passed by the tall buildings in the city center. The lights shone brightly, reflecting in her eyes. She thought about how far she had come since the day she sent that wrong message. That one mistake had turned into a turning point in her life. At home, her mother smiled proudly when she saw her daughter holding a certificate of completion from her first course. Mina's heart swelled with happiness. "Your father would have been proud," she whispered. Mira hugged her mother tightly. "It's because of that kind man. I want to thank him one day properly." Across town in his quiet office, Ryan read through Mira's progress report sent by the training center. He smiled when he saw her name at the top of the list. He remembered how lost she had looked when he first met her, and now she was slowly finding her own path. He whispered to himself, "Sometimes a small mistake can bring the right people together." For Mira, life was beginning to change. For Ryan, it was a reminder that even the smallest act of kindness could change not only another person's life, but also his own heart. And though neither of them knew it yet, their paths were going to cross again in ways that would surprise them both. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks slowly became months. Mira's life was not the same anymore. Every morning, after feeding her baby and making sure her mother had eaten before leaving for work, she would prepare herself for her computer class. Her eyes no longer carried only tiredness. They carried hope. The small room that once felt like a cage now felt like a place where dreams were beginning to grow. Mira had a small notebook where she wrote down everything she learned. She often practiced typing late at night when her baby was asleep. Her fingers moved across the keyboard slowly at first, but as time passed, they began to move faster and more confidently. Mina watched her daughter with quiet pride. She had always wanted Mira to have the education and respect she never had. When she came home each evening, Mira would tell her what she had learned that day. They would sit on the bed and talk for hours. It was the first time in a long while that laughter returned to their home. Ryan continued to keep an eye on Mira's progress. He never wanted her to know that he was the one supporting her education. He believed true help should lift someone without making them feel small. Every few weeks, he would ask his assistant, Ravi, to bring him updates. Ravi would tell him about her excellent attendance, her perfect scores, and her growing confidence. Ryan often smiled after hearing about her. In his busy world of meetings and numbers, her story was a quiet reminder that life was about more than profit. He sometimes thought of how one wrong text had brought him into the life of a stranger who had changed the way he saw the world. One afternoon, Ryan received a call from the training center's manager. The woman spoke with enthusiasm. "Sir, the student named Mira has completed all her modules with outstanding results. She even helps other students who struggle. She has real potential. If there is any opportunity in your company, she deserves a chance." Ryan thanked her and thought carefully. His company had several departments, and one of them needed a junior assistant for document handling. It was not a high position, but it was a good start. He decided it was time for Mira to take her next step. That evening, Mira returned from class holding her certificate. She could hardly wait to show it to her mother. Mina hugged her tightly, her eyes wet with tears of joy. "You did it, Mira. I always knew you could. I could only do it because of that stranger's kindness," Mira said softly. "I still don't even know his name." The next morning, Mira received a call from the training center. The woman on the phone said, "Mira, we are happy to tell you that one of our partner companies has selected you for an interview. You have been highly recommended." Mira was shocked. "An interview? Me?" "Yes," the woman replied warmly. "It's for an office assistant position. They will contact you soon for the details." When Mira ended the call, she could hardly breathe. She sat down, her heart racing with excitement and fear. Her mother came running, worried. Mira quickly told her the news, and Mina clapped her hands with happiness. "See? Good things come when you least expect them," she said. 2 days later, Mira arrived at the company's tall glass building. It was the same building where Ryan worked, but she did not know that yet. She wore her best clothes, a simple blue kurta with white embroidery that her mother had ironed for her. She carried her certificate and resume in a small folder. The moment she entered the building, her eyes widened. The marble floor shone under her feet, and people in formal clothes walked briskly with files and laptops. She felt nervous but told herself to stay calm. She took a deep breath and followed the directions given by the receptionist. In the meeting room, she waited quietly for the interviewer. After a few minutes, a man entered the room. To her surprise, it was Ryan. Mira stood up in shock. "You?" she whispered. Ryan smiled gently. "Yes, it's me. Please sit down." Mira hesitated. "I did not know this was your company." Ryan nodded. "You were not supposed to know, but I thought it was time you did. You worked hard and you deserve this chance. I only opened the door. You walked through it yourself." Mira sat down, still trying to process everything. Ryan spoke to her kindly but formally, as an employer would. He asked about her training, her goals, and her skills. She answered confidently. He could see how much she had grown since the first time they met. When the interview ended, Ryan stood up and said, "Welcome to the team, Mira. You got the job." Mira gasped. "Truly, thank you, sir. I will work very hard." "I know you will," Ryan said with a smile. "You've already proven that." When she returned home that evening, Mina could hardly believe her ears when Mira told her everything. They both cried tears of joy. The baby, now almost 1 year old, clapped his tiny hands as if celebrating with them. That night they cooked rice and lentils and shared a simple but happy dinner together. From the next week, Mira started her new job. The first few days were hard as she adjusted to the busy office environment. She learned how to prepare reports, answer emails, and handle files. Many of her colleagues liked her because she was polite, hardworking, and always ready to help. Ryan kept his distance during office hours. He did not want others to think she received special treatment. But sometimes during lunch breaks he would see her helping someone with their computer or organizing files with quiet focus. Each time he saw her, he felt a sense of pride. One afternoon, a small problem arose in the office. A presentation file for an important client had gone missing just before a big meeting. Everyone was tense. Ryan's team searched their computers, but no one could find the backup. Mira quietly went to her desk and began searching through the shared folders. Within minutes, she found the file in a mislabeled folder. She quickly printed it and handed it to Ryan before the meeting started. After the meeting, Ryan called her to his office. "You saved us today," he said with a smile. "It was nothing, sir," Mira replied humbly. "I just looked carefully." "That's exactly what makes you special," Ryan said. "You notice what others miss." From that day on, Mira's confidence grew even stronger. She began handling more responsibilities, and everyone in the office respected her. Ryan often watched her quietly, thinking how her honesty and determination had brought her this far. Months passed, and Mira became an important part of the company. She still lived in the same small apartment, but she had begun saving money. Her dream was to move to a better place where her mother could rest and her child could play safely. One evening, as she was leaving the office, Ryan called out to her. "Mira," he said, "can you stay for a moment?" She nodded and waited. Ryan handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter confirming her promotion to a full-time assistant position with a higher salary. Mira was speechless. "Sir, I don't know how to thank you." Ryan shook his head. "You don't need to thank me. You earned this. Remember, you were never a mistake. You just sent a message that reached the right person at the right time." Mira smiled with tears in her eyes. "You changed my life, sir." Ryan looked at her kindly. "And you reminded me what really matters in life. Hard work, honesty, and kindness." When Mira walked home that evening, she held the letter close to her heart. The city lights glowed above her, and she felt as if they were shining just for her. Her life had begun to change, not through luck, but through courage, kindness, and a wrong message that had turned into a beautiful beginning. The gentle morning sun entered through the window of the small apartment. The air inside was filled with a sense of peace. Mira was sitting at the table feeding her little boy, who was now old enough to walk and talk in short words. He laughed as she handed him a piece of bread, and she smiled, her heart warm with love. Life had changed so much in a short time. The walls that once held sadness now echoed with laughter. Mira had been working in Ryan's company for nearly a year. Her hard work and dedication had made her one of the most trusted employees in her department. Everyone respected her for her calm nature and willingness to help. She had grown from a shy, uncertain woman into someone confident and strong. Even Ryan noticed the change every time she entered the office with her steady smile. For Ryan, the company had also begun to feel different. It was no longer just a place filled with business and profit. Since Mira's arrival, a quiet sense of humanity had spread through the halls. He often encouraged his staff to treat each other with kindness and respect, reminding them that success was not only about money. People worked with more warmth and cooperation than before, and Ryan knew that Mira had played a silent part in that change. One Friday evening, the company held an event to celebrate the success of a new project. It was the first time Mira had attended such an event. She wore a simple cream-colored dress her mother had helped her stitch. When she entered the hall, she looked graceful yet humble. Ryan saw her from across the room and smiled proudly. During the event, Ryan gave a short speech about growth, teamwork, and the value of helping others. His words carried weight because everyone knew he lived by them. Toward the end, he mentioned something unexpected. He said, "A year ago, I received a message from someone I didn't know. It was sent by mistake, but that mistake reminded me how small acts of kindness can change lives. That message began a story of courage and honesty that continues to inspire me today." The crowd listened in silence, touched by his sincerity. Mira felt her heart beat faster. She knew he was talking about her. When Ryan looked in her direction, their eyes met briefly, and she smiled with quiet gratitude. After the event, Mira thanked him for his kind words. Ryan replied simply, "You deserved every one of them." As months passed, Mira continued to do well at her job. She saved carefully and finally rented a slightly larger apartment closer to the city. Her mother now worked less and spent more time with the child. For the first time in her life, Mira felt secure. One afternoon, Ryan called her to his office. She entered nervously, wondering if something was wrong. But when she sat down, he handed her a file. Inside were papers with her name written neatly at the top. Ryan said, "This is a small project I'm starting. It's a community program for single mothers who want to work or study, but don't have the support they need. I want you to help manage it." Mira looked at the papers with wide eyes. "Me, sir?" she asked softly. "Yes," Ryan said with a smile. "Who better to guide them than someone who understands their struggles? You have lived that life. You can show them that there is a way forward." Mira's eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. "I will do my best, sir." "I know you will," Ryan said. "I trust you." Over the next few months, Mira worked hard to set up the new program. She visited neighborhoods where many women lived in poverty. She talked to them kindly, listened to their stories, and helped them join training classes. Many of them were mothers like her, trying to raise children alone. Mira helped them fill forms, guided them through interviews, and encouraged them not to give up. Each evening when she returned home, she would tell her mother about the women she had met and the progress they were making. Mina listened proudly, sometimes with tears in her eyes. "You have become a blessing for others, Mira," she would say. Ryan often visited the centers quietly to see the progress. He would watch Mira speaking to groups of women, her voice filled with warmth and confidence. Every time he saw her, he felt proud. She had become more than an employee. She was a symbol of hope and strength. One day, a local newspaper heard about the program and decided to feature it in an article. They came to take photos and interview the people involved. The story was titled, "From Struggle to Strength: How One Young Mother is Changing Lives." When the article was published, everyone at the company read it with admiration. Mira's story inspired many people. She received messages of appreciation from people she had never met. Even the women she had helped came to thank her personally. Ryan called her to his office once again. When she entered, he showed her the newspaper on his desk. "You made it to the news," he said with a smile. Mira laughed softly. "I never thought something like this could happen to me." Ryan looked at her thoughtfully. "It happened because you believed in yourself. You just needed someone to remind you that you could." "Thank you, sir," Mira said. "I will always be grateful to you." "You changed everything for me." Ryan shook his head. "No, Mira, you changed it yourself. I only replied to a message." They both smiled, remembering how it had all begun. Time moved forward quickly after that. Mira's program continued to grow. She hired more trainers, expanded the classes, and helped dozens of women find jobs. The company supported her fully, and Ryan made sure the program received enough funding. A year later, the company held another annual event, But this time, it was special. Ryan had decided to open a new community center in Mira's name, called the Mira Foundation for Women and Children. When the name was revealed, the audience clapped loudly, and Mira stood frozen, tears shining in her eyes. Ryan looked at her and said, "This foundation is not just a name. It's a story of courage, kindness, and faith. It reminds us that even one message sent by mistake can lead to a journey of change." The applause filled the hall, and Mira felt her mother's hand squeeze hers proudly. After the event, Mira stood near the window of the new office looking out at the city lights. Her son ran around happily playing with balloons. Ryan joined her for a moment and said softly, "You have come a long way, Mira. Are you proud of yourself?" She smiled and nodded. "Yes, sir. I am proud. And thankful. Sometimes I still think about that night when I sent that wrong message. I thought it was a mistake, but it was actually the best thing that ever happened to me." Ryan nodded. "That message changed my life too. It reminded me why helping others matters more than anything else." The sound of laughter filled the room. Mira turned to watch her son and her mother smiling together. She realized that her life had come full circle. The fear, the hunger, and the sleepless nights were now only memories. In their place stood hope, purpose, and peace. As she stood there, looking out at the shining city that had once felt so distant, she whispered a small prayer of thanks. Her story had started with a cry for help, but it ended with a message of kindness and courage that would continue to touch others for years to come. And somewhere in his heart, Ryan knew that the simple act of replying to a wrong number had given his own life a meaning he had never expected to find.